When I was about 6 years old, my parents divorced. My mom, who struggled with alcohol, had piled up DUIs and other issues, so my dad ended up with full custody of me and my little sister, Emily. We moved to a new neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, just a quiet place where kids could still ride bikes in the street. Our new elementary school was close enough to walk, maybe 5 or 6 blocks away, but Emily and I were way too young to walk by ourselves. Most mornings, Dad would walk us to school before heading to work. Sometimes, if he was busy, he'd pick us up in his black Mazda. The pickup line was the usual setup. Classes lined up outside with their teachers, and staff members would escort each kid to their parents' car once it pulled up. At that time, Mom was in jail. Dad was the only one ever picking us up. One afternoon, when I was in 3rd grade and Emily was in 1st, we stood outside with the rest of the kids waiting for Dad. A few minutes passed, and then Emily tugged on my sleeve. "There's someone here for us," she whispered. She told me that a man in a car had said both of our names, first and last. The teacher's aide had walked her toward the car, but Emily had stopped herself, saying she wanted to find me first. The man told her, "Your dad asked me to pick you up." He smiled when he said it, but Emily didn't recognize him, and thank God she didn't get in. My stomach dropped. Dad had drilled it into us. Don't talk to strangers. So I grabbed my teacher and told her what happened. She got this alarmed look on her face, told us to stay put, and went to speak to another teacher. A few minutes later, Dad showed up in his Mazda. Safe. Normal. But when we told him what happened, the look on his face changed immediately. He sat us down that night, and we went over safety rules again and again. He also asked Emily for every detail she could remember and then called the police. But Emily was only 6. She couldn't give much more than he was a man in a car. A few weeks later, it happened again. This time, the man said my name. I remember it like it was yesterday. Dad had already given the school the police report and instructions to never release us to anyone but him. But the guy must have switched cars. Emily swore the first time it was a red car, but now he was in a black one, similar to Dad's. I spotted the car pulling up and, thinking it was my father, ran toward it. Just before I grabbed the handle, I looked through the window. The driver's face froze me. He was pale, middle-aged, with sharp, angular features. His mouth was smiling, but his eyes weren't. They were narrow, squinty, and filled with something that felt almost angry. The smile didn't match the eyes. It felt wrong. I backed away and turned toward the carpool assistant to tell her. But by the time I opened my mouth, the car was gone. Just vanished. Dad called the police again, but with no license plate and no solid description, there was nothing they could do. The last time I saw him was months later, near the end of the school year. That day, I wasn't waiting in line. I was walking home with a big group of neighborhood kids. We were laughing, trading snacks, doing what kids do, when a car slowed down beside us. I didn't even need a second glance. It was him. The same pale face. The same cold eyes. He lowered his window and started to say something, but I screamed for the others to run. All of us bolted, cutting across lawns until we piled into a friend's house just 3 doors away. Her parents were shocked as we all babbled at once about a man trying to talk to us from his car. I never saw him again. Not at school. Not in the neighborhood. Shortly after, Dad started dating the woman who would become my stepmom. We moved into her place across town and switched schools. Life went back to normal, at least on the surface. But I've never forgotten that man's face. Even now, in my 20s, he still shows up in my dreams sometimes. I don't know how he knew our names. I don't know how he knew which school we went to, or that my mom was out of the picture, and I don't know what his real plan was. But I do know this. If Emily had trusted his smile that first day, if she had gotten into that car, my little sister might never have come home. I met him in 7th grade English. We'll call him Cole. He was the new kid, the type who looked like he belonged on a BMX bike or a skateboard. Floppy Justin Bieber hair, flat brim hat, and shirts with the monster logo plastered across the front. The whole vibe. For the first week, we didn't speak. I'd see him at lunch, sitting alone at the end of a cafeteria table, drumming his fingers on the plastic, staring off like he was listening to music only he could hear. I don't know why, but I kept watching him. Something about how he moved, it just pulled my eyes. One afternoon, I came out of the bathroom and saw him cornering a sixth grade girl at the hall junction. He was trying to talk her into kissing him. She looked confused, scared. In my dumb seventh grade brain, it didn't register as wrong. I thought he was bold, cool. He glanced over at me, gave this little smile, like we shared a secret, then walked away when the girl ducked in her classroom. The next day in English class, he noticed my book, Of Mice and Men. Cole leaned over and said, "Here, take my notes." He slid me a crumpled packet and added, "Just change some words so it doesn't look copied." I skimmed Wikipedia and the movie. I hated reading back then, so I thanked him like he'd saved my life. Funny thing, now I love that book. After that, we started talking at lunch. We sat outside in the quad. He told me he was into BMX and motocross. He rattled off parts and tricks and riders like I should know them. I nodded along and pretended I did. Here's the part one can't explain. I wasn't attracted to him. I'm not into guys, but I felt pulled, like he had gravity. Soon he was coming over after school, almost every day. He charmed my mom within a week. He'd compliment the house. "Your plants are so cool." Praise her cooking like a pro judge, and somehow he knew all the plot drama on Teen Mom 2, which my mom watched religiously. They'd recap episodes together in the kitchen while I set up games in the living room. Eventually, I started going to his place too. His family was nice, quieter than he was, but he argued with his mom a lot. One afternoon, she told us to take a break from Grand Theft Auto and go outside for some air. Cole's smile hardened. He stood up, spun, and hurled the controller. It hit her in the forehead with a sick crack. She staggered back, hand her head. I was sent home immediately. As I walked down the driveway, I could still hear him screaming at her, words I won't repeat. The next day at my locker, he showed up like nothing happened. "Sorry about yesterday," he muttered. I asked if his mom was okay. He shrugged. "Had to get stitches," then he smirked. "Too bad I had to do that to get her to shut up." Something crawled under my skin and stayed there. Still, I kept hanging out, and slowly his tone with me shifted. He started jabbing at my clothes, black band tees, worn jeans. "Emo, gay. Try not to look like a funeral," he'd say, laughing. It got meaner. I got quieter. One weekend, I slept over. Around midnight, he grinned like he'd just thought of something brilliant. "Let's play a game." He called it hide-and-seek tag in the dark. His idea, not mine. We turned off every light in the house until it was black as a cave. He counted in the hallway. I slipped into the crawl space under the stairs. The little door was cracked just enough to breathe. The house went dead silent. You know that silence where you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. The air felt wrong, heavy, like the house was holding its breath. I waited. Minutes stretched. My arms were prickling with goosebumps. Then I heard it. A low, breathy laugh right outside the crawlspace door. I peered through the crack and saw his eyes staring back. "You're screwed," he whispered. The door yanked open. A rapid pop, pop, pop exploded in the dark. I felt tiny stings tearing into my arms, my chest, my neck. Hot pain. The shock was so total, I thought I was being shot for real. He emptied the entire magazine of a BB gun into me. I curled up, unable to think, unable to speak, just trying not to cry. When the pain finally ebbed enough to move, I stood up without a word, grabbed my stuff, and left his house. The next week at school, he stared at me in doorways. He followed me down hallways, slow, silent. He texted. He called. I didn't answer. After a while, he stopped. The gravity broke. Years passed. I barely thought about him, until a mutual friend brought him up. They were white as they talked. "Did you hear about Cole?" I hadn't. They said he'd gone on the run after shooting his girlfriend in the head because she wouldn't let him have a last cigarette. She lived. She recovered. He disappeared. No one's seen him since. No known whereabouts. Just a rumor that he slipped to another state, another name, another life where nobody knew what he'd done. Sometimes, late at night, I replay it all. The controller against his mom's head. The way he smirked after. The BB gun in the dark. The laugh at the crawlspace door. And I think about how I once called that person my best friend. We were about 275 miles from home, staying in a motel just off the highway. We'd already switched hotels once, because the first one had been mold-infested and gross. This one wasn't much better, but at least it felt livable. The trip was for my brother, Ethan. He was starting college the next morning, and this was his last night with us before we left. To blow off steam, we did something dumb, sprayed each other with silly string, and ran around the motel parking lot, laughing and shouting like little kids. At one point, I noticed someone, a man standing at the top of the stairs that led to the second floor. He wasn't moving, just watching us. I brushed it off. We were being loud. Maybe he was just annoyed. After a while, Ethan and my mom left to bring him back to his dorm. I decided to stay behind. I was tired of riding in the car and just wanted a quiet night. I sat in a room, phone pressed to my ear, chatting with my friend Adrian. That's when I heard it. A knock at the door. Not just any knock, our knock. The same pattern my mom always used. I reached for the handle, ready to swing the door open, but something made me pause. A little voice telling me to look first. I pressed my eye to the peephole, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't my mom. It was the man from the stairs. The same one who had been staring at us while we played outside. My heart started racing. I whispered to Adrian, "It's him. He's here." Then the man barked, "Open this damn door." His fist slammed against the wood, making the frame shake. I froze in place, whispering as quietly as I could into the phone. Minutes crawled by, 5, maybe 10. I finally gathered the courage to creep back toward the door. The moment I leaned toward the peephole, his body crashed into it. The whole door rattled on its hinges as he threw his weight against it and twisted the handle violently. The knob shook. Metal scraped. He wanted in. I grabbed my phone and blew up Ethan's Snapchat. 30, maybe 40 frantic messages. Come back right now." He finally replied, 10 minutes. "Sit tight. I'm coming." I sat there in the dark, clutching the phone, listening to the angry rattling at the door until suddenly it stopped. Silence. By the time Ethan returned with Mom, the man was gone. I was shaken, but tried to convince myself it was over. But later that night, I went with him to drop Ethan back at his dorm. On the way, I stopped at the front desk. I asked the clerk, "If someone comes asking for a key to my room, don't give it to them. Please." The clerk shrugged and said, "We don't really check IDs. If they ask for a key, we just make one." My chest went cold. Then he added, almost casually, "Funny thing, someone already came earlier asking for a key to your room. The same man." I didn't say anything back, just nodded, my throat tight, my skin crawling. To this day, I don't want to imagine what would have happened if I'd opened the door or if the clerk had handed him that key.